Okay, so I think we're live. I'm gonna make my screen bigger for everyone. All right, you can hear me good?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, I don't know why it's looking like I'm lacking, but I'm just gonna start. I want to welcome everybody to the Women's Public Leadership Network live event with our special guest, Miss Lea Marquez Peterson, the Arizona. She is the commissioner for the state of Arizona. So,
Yeah,
welcome,
thank you,
Miss Leah.
Princess. Thank you for having me.
So we're gonna start off on this program. We want to explore how you got to the position you are in currently and what drives you in your leadership journey and position. We're also going to touch on what your position requires, like the skills to be successful as a commissioner. And we're going to touch on what positions have you held that help prepare you for, your current role today. And I'm sorry again, Miss Leah, about this lag. We're going to hop right in. So first, let's just talk about a commissioner and what that is for our guests.
Yeah, no, certainly. Thank you, Princess. So I serve on the Arizona Corporation Commission. There are 5 commissioners in our state, and we're elected statewide. I'm honored to be the first Latina to serve in a statewide role in the history of Arizona, which was very surprising in 2019 when that occurred. What I do at the commission is regulate the utility industry. So that's electricity, water, gas, and wastewater. We handle railroad and pipeline safety. We incorporate all of the businesses in the state and tackle securities fraud. So there's a real variety of issues that are on our monthly agendas. And we tackle such important issues as solar energy, the clean energy transition, our utilities on nuclear power plants. We're engaged in so many different conversations. It's been very interesting.
Okay, that is interesting. So protecting the environment is probably like we could say that's like one of the key things protecting Arizona. Um, so let's get
And
into
I'd actually
what
state the
drives
priority
you to.
is. Sorry,
Go
we
ahead.
do have a lag. Go ahead.
Yes, there is a lag, but go ahead, Miss Leah.
I was going to say our priority really is energy reliability and affordable utility rates. So we actually set the rates for customers in the state of Arizona. So we need to ensure that the lights stay on, that electricity keeps running, so we don't have rolling brownouts or air conditioning is not affected, especially because Arizona is such a hot state.
Right. So keeping those utilities down. I love that. And I love that. And I'm happy that you're out there protecting the community. So, with that being said, let's get into the journey. How did you know you wanted to even step into this role? How did this role come about? And what made you say, no, I got to go after this?
Yeah. No, the good question. So I did not grow up thinking I wanted to be a commissioner. I'm sure not many commissioners did think that. But what, interestingly enough, I've been very involved in public policy and advocacy for most of my career. So I've been a small business owner. I owned a chain of gas stations and convenience stores in Tucson. I ran our leadership program in Southern Arizona, Greater Tucson Leadership, and I was the president of our Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for about 10 years. At that time, I'd worked closely with our local, our state, our federal legislators and on issues that impacted small businesses throughout my community, my region. We did a lot of work in southern Arizona, northern Mexico, so I'd often give input to our elected leaders. When my congresswoman at the time decided to move to a spot or seek a seat in our U.S. Senate. So as she pursued that, I met with her and said I would be interested in running. So my first foray into really the politics, the running for office, was running for Congress in Southern Arizona. What a learning I had. We could spend a whole hour on what it takes to run a congressional campaign, and I enjoyed it, getting to know everybody and folks throughout the region or the district. But when I won my primary but lost the general election, the governor reached out and said, "We have got an opportunity on the Corporation Commission. We have a vacancy that's about to occur. I'd like to appoint you there." And I'd known him for many years in his role as our state treasurer and as our state governor. So I certainly said, I'm ready to serve, sir, and I will learn this position. And he appointed me in 2019 with the understanding that I had to run statewide right away to keep the seat. And I knew it was an elected seat. I knew my fellow commissioners. So I joined the commission at that point, and it's a steep learning curve. And then from there, I ran for election to the seat in 2020 and was blessed to win that seat. And running during the pandemic, certainly can talk more about that. And I'm currently in re-election mode again right now for the 2024 election. So that would be another 4-year term. So it's been an interesting journey. But no, I didn't think I would be a commissioner when I was a little girl or anything like that. But I've always been interested in public service, being involved and really helping represent and serve the communities that I live in.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I know they want to hear about it because being a commissioner, and then you said a corporations, so you're dealing with the gas company, like you're dealing with the companies to help the community, and that's something different. When you first start out, like you said, you wanted to go into the Congress role, and that is way different than what you're doing now. So, and then to be the first Latino. So, were you born here in America?
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Good question there. So my great grandparents actually immigrated from Mexico. So they immigrated into Arizona and the New Mexico area. So I'm about fourth or fifth generation, depending what side of the family you count. We've been multi-generational
Okay.
entrepreneurs or small business owners. So my family's owned tortilla factories, turquoise shops, Mexican restaurants, you name it, lots of different types of businesses. My parents owned insurance agencies and community theater groups. So been very involved from that regard from a small business perspective. And that's really what's led me or propelled me to run for public office, is to really serve the small businesses. And now ultimately I'm serving the ratepayers throughout the state, which is, a majority of the state who use the private investor owned utilities that we regulate. So it's been a really interesting journey.
Yes. Fun fact about me, Commissioner, is that during like Oprah's journey, she always talked about, the top fields in the future. And so one of the things that I took upon when I was a little younger was I got my electrical certification, and then I got a license in photovoltaic energy. Why? I don't use it at all, but I am licensed and I do understand, and teaching my family, like, especially, I have 5 brothers before me, teaching them, like, understanding you can get money back from your energy. They need your energy, they need your services just as much as you need them, especially if you're a homeowner, how important that is. So yeah, just a little fun fact, Commissioner.
That's very interesting.
So let's get into. Go ahead.
No, I say that's very interesting because we work with a lot of solar developers, with the utilities. I mean, think of the transition happening across the nation from more, and the globe really, from more fossil fuel based energy economies to a cleaner energy. And that's really being demanded or required by a lot of the largest users, a lot of the large companies, manufacturers, and others, as well as customers are wanting to see cleaner energy. So we're embroiled in that debate at what makes sense financially and to the planet and so on. Every day there are issues before us that we're really diving into.
Thank you for that. So the next question we have for you, Commissioner, is what skills do you think are non-negotiable in a leadership position?
Yeah. I'd say one of the most important is really integrity. Anyone who's served in any leadership role whether it's leading a school board or an elected position or leading a nonprofit organization, uh, rarely are issues black and white, right? There's always a lot of gray area in between. And I think the most important attribute is really having integrity and doing the right thing on behalf of the people you're serving. And that's something that, I've always had issues before me, whether I was running our large Hispanic chamber, and issues that I would have to support or advocate for, what was in the best interest for our members. And that same skill and attribute applies certainly to my role at the commission.
Thank you for that. So let's see. While we're talking about the Hispanic Chamber, we'll dive into this one. So we know September 15th through October 15th was National Hispanic Heritage Month. As the first Latina to serve in a statewide office in the state of Arizona, how has your Latin heritage influenced your career? And then the second question would be, how does it continue to impact your experience as a leader in your current role as the first Latina commissioner?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because how it's influences me is I have been advocating and working with minority owned businesses for most of my career, whether at the Hispanic Chamber and in other roles that I've served in the community. So, as an elected official now, it's important to me to continue to do outreach. Arizona is about 35% Hispanic. The Hispanic population is is the largest population within our K through 12 system. So we are the future workers of Arizona, certainly, in a lot of places throughout the state. And I bring that knowledge with me to the role I have at the commission. I do a lot of public speaking. I try to be out every week if I can in a different organization or chamber or Rotary or Latino-based organization in the state, talking about what we do at the commission, because it is kind of wonky. Not everyone knows what we do, and making sure that they understand that they should be weighing in and having a voice and an opinion. So I'm a big proponent of getting people registered to vote, any ethnicity, of course, but certainly we have a lot of work to do in the Hispanic community, and then making sure they understand what the commission is doing and how we impact their families and their businesses. So from I think my perspective, being Latina, serving in this role, I do take a look at where I'm speaking and what influence I can have. And I think ultimately people like to see role models or people that look like themselves and represent the community in these different public roles. So someday they might want to be one of the commissioners, or serving on city council or running for Congress or something like that. So I do think of myself as a role model in that regard too.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure a lot of um, Latinos in your area, or even I'm just gonna say the black and brown community at this point in the state of Arizona, they're probably like, wow, you like you said, you have 4, 5, 6 generations of family that has put the work in America to show you how to be a leader. And I think that's important. And I think that's important when you're saying I'm giving back, because your family was able to show you that way. So I really love that. So let's see. Let's dive into some more questions, okay? Um, all right. What tips would you give to those just starting out in their journey, whether it's on the political side or the entrepreneurial side, since you have many years of experience in both? Let's
I
see.
would suggest I would suggest never stop learning. So, if you're interested in a political career, there are a lot of campaign colleges, training programs. There are ways in which to learn how to do public speaking. I would say train yourself, join or participate in campaign schools if that's what your interest is. At the Hispanic Chamber, I actually used to host a campaign school, nonpartisan, that would talk to people about what it would take to run at the local or the state or the federal level, so that we could refer people to different resources. And I suggest if you're interested in public office, you look to a campaign school in your area, because they're all across the nation. I also suggest, I mentioned I was the executive director of Greater Tucson Leadership, which is a community leadership program. Those are great ways to learn to know about your community. Every community has some type of leadership program. And usually you apply for it and you learn about the different sectors within your community, whether it's energy or health or education or whatever it may be, large industries or the business side of your community from those leadership programs. So I'd say continue to learn and gather knowledge as you decide what path you're going to take, whether it's entrepreneurship or in a nonprofit leadership role or in running for office.
Would it be fair to say that when you become an entrepreneur and you're going after you get everything established and the business is going, like ultimately for me, I know for me and maybe for you, but ultimately you want to give back, so that political part always ends up coming in some type of way, right? um Once you start that entrepreneur journey, it's like, I done got beat down, told no 17 times. You go through the motions and then you're like, now I want to fight the power, right? Like, I know somebody else is about to have to go through this if I don't speak up. And that's literally most entrepreneurs, even that I speak to, that I coached, that's like, well, I should run for office. I'm like, you should. You
Yeah.
live through it, so you have the knowledge.
Yeah. And I
So
would add to
another
that
question, good question.
you've got to have some tough skin to run for office, right? So I think being an entrepreneur and getting those no's in many cases, or realizing you might be doing something as an entrepreneur not everybody agrees with, that's great training ground for being in public office someday. So I think it's a good way. If you run for office, more than likely you're going to have to raise money. Nobody likes that, right? That's not the fun part of the job, but you got to be able to get out there and sell yourself and to
Absolutely.
raise the funds to run for whatever seat you're looking at.
Absolutely. When I started this company, I literally was putting my flyers on all the cars at the VA hospitals, at
Yeah.
every local hospital in my area, because I mean, like you said, you have to get your own money, you have to do everything yourself. So it does fall in line with knocking on doors when it's time to get elected. You're like, I already know, I gotta knock on all these apartments and I gotta put my face out there.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I'd say that one of the best experiences I had was cold calling at my dad's insurance agency in high school. That was one of
I
my
know
first jobs. And I would
Yes.
call his customers and set up appointments, and he'd pay me by appointment. And I'd hire my girlfriends, and we would do it together after school. What great training I had for running for office someday, right? When I would have to cold call
Yes.
people and speak to strangers and ask for their support or whatever it might be. And so I think entrepreneurship is a great training ground.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. So the next question we have for you is, at what point did you realize, oh, did we do that one? At what point did you realize that public service was going to stay an element in your career? And what other paths did you consider? Which I think we kind of hit on this, but you could just, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on the realization of it.
Yeah, I realized early on, I think whether it was my leadership role at Greater Tucson Leadership or at the Chamber, that I like speaking up on behalf of my communities, or in that case, the small business community or a certain industry. So it's a path I really enjoy. And now I'm speaking up on behalf of ratepayers as I sit as a commissioner on the Arizona Corporation Commission. If I wasn't doing this, I would be running a business because I'm also still very entrepreneurial. I've done consulting on the side. I've had retail businesses, service businesses, and I always see great opportunities. So I think someday, if I'm not in public office, I would go back to business ownership.
Really? Even with the hustle and bustle of it all.
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot. You know, in my I had at one point 6 gas stations with 50 employees, and so had to make payroll and struggle with cash flow and hiring the right people. And so I've experienced all of that, which made me very valuable as a chamber president at the time to be able to explain that experience and help my fellow members of my chamber work through all those different issues. But I've also had a business brokerage firm where there were just 5 of us. It was kind of, you get out there and find and sell yourself, find your clients, a very different environment. So I think I've learned what suits me best in terms of business ownership. And in this world, I've learned so much about energy and water. And in Arizona, water is a hot issue, right? We're really determining how we have the adequate water resources to continue to grow and to see the incredible economic development we have in the state. So that's an area that interests me also someday when I'm perhaps not in public service.
That's amazing. And water is scarce in Arizona. We do give Arizona some water, y'all. Share the water. Share the water out there in California. Um, so let's see. Let's get into some more questions. Let me pick a good one for the audience. Okay. What challenges do you think specifically exist for women that identify as center right when they seek to be leaders, especially in today's environment?
I think it depends where you're coming from. In Arizona, honestly, the center right women run a lot of the clubs and organizations in the state. So plugging into other like-minded women and finding folks that will support your position or your run, your election, I think that's important. So whether you're running a business or you're running for office, a lot of it is networking and making sure that people know who you are and they know about either your product and service or your platform as an elected official. So I think the biggest challenge for center right or really any candidate running is plugging into a network that is like-minded so that you can help create awareness of yourself.
Okay, I love that. Awareness is so important now, especially with social media. How do you feel about the social media with you being in the game so long, Commissioner, like as an entrepreneur in the government space? How do you feel about the social media? Like how it, like some companies won't even give you funding if you don't have over 2,000 followers. Like how does that, how do you feel about that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I use social media for educating, constituents. So I use it to explain to people what I do. I try to shoot a 1 or 2 minute video after our meetings when we're dealing with really hot issues to explain what did we just do and how does it, why do you care and how does it impact you and how can you interact with us as commissioner. So I put that out on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. If I'm touring something or meeting with an interesting company, I'm posting photos of that. But you're right. I mean, there can be some love and some hate on social media. And so I do have to learn to not be emotionally affected by negative comments and so on. I'll look at them and say, okay, I'm hearing feedback from folks on whatever, but I try not to let it bother me and to just realize I'm using this as a tool to educate people as to either what I'm doing or why I voted a certain way.
Right. And exactly. And that's what I felt like that's what it was supposed to be for, but now you see it, and as an entrepreneur in the government space, I mean they're using it for all different types of ways to keep demand down or bring demand up. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. So back to our good questions. For those, okay, we'll start with this one. At WPLN, we are working to build a network of support for women leaders like yourself. Did any woman help you on your journey? If so, what made them mentors to you or someone that you took their advice and actually applied it to your life?
Yeah, there are a couple of women. Certainly, my mom comes to mind. I mean, she's someone who we would discuss tough issues at the dinner table when I was growing up. My family is mixed in terms of political affiliation, which may be what most people are experiencing nowadays. So we would take some really hot, tough issue and talk about it at dinner. And that I think helped me to more easily define my position on things where I needed to learn more, understand other perspectives. I think that's important. I think I also had a number of mentors at the Hispanic Chamber, a lot of strong women that were on my board. So as the Hispanic Chamber went through a number of important legislative bills at our state, SB 1070, if you've heard of that, which is an immigration bill. There are a lot of different bills that have come before when I served as president of the Hispanic Chamber, that we would vet and discuss as a board and determine our position on, and we had a system for that. But I relied and had a lot of mentors, especially women mentors on the board that would kind of help me wrap my head around this important issue as I went out to be a spokesperson on behalf of businesses that were members of our chamber. So there are a number of women that came to mind when you asked that question.
Okay, but your mom was like the one because she was a boss in her own right. You guys already had the family businesses going. So she knew how to get you get you in the right
Yeah,
frame of mind to not, be one of those people lost in the sauce when it comes to these things like being a leader, being an entrepreneur, being in a elected seat. All right. I love that. Thank you, Commissioner.
sure.
So, okay. What challenges do you think? Oh, we did that one. Um, okay. What tips would you give to those just starting out on their journey? I don't think we did that one. Did we do that one, Commissioner?
No, I mean it kind of relates to what can you do to be prepared. I would say
Right.
take leadership roles, take risk, don't be fearful of. Oftentimes when you are someone that speaks up in a room, you end up being the one volunteered or voluntold, right? To lead a committee or lead an organization. And I wouldn't be hesitant. I would jump in with both feet and say, sure, I'll chair this or chair that. Or I've ended up in a number of leadership roles because I was one that spoke up. And when I was asked to serve, I said yes. I mean, that does take, I think, the ability to have that life balance, right? You need to have that support around you, whether it's, in my case, my parents, my husband, my brother and his wife, who can help support me and my children. And I'm married to my husband. That balance so that I can take on leadership roles. So it's really figuring out what's best for you. But I often tell people take the risk and say yes.
Absolutely. So for me, my company, I do a lot of work inside of prisons and jails all across the U.S. And in Arizona, like the whole Arizona, Texas, all the way to like the Californias, the women, a lot of the girls, the Hispanic culture girls, have parents that have been incarcerated for a long time, 10, 20 years they have, and they are getting locked up to see their parents. Like the hope is like gone. It's like I want to see my mom, but running for office is an alternative. Being great is an your mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you speak to those girls, the girls who may not come from a good home, who may be out here like thinking, if I want to see the family that I do have, I have to do something extreme, or I have to go back to the bad town in Mexico because they all got deported. Not that when they should be being empowered to make it here. Can you speak to them?
Yeah, I would say there are different ways to enact change, right? Whether you're picketing or uh, being loud, I'd say about the issue. You could also use the media as a tool, and you can also work through the system to be sitting at the table, negotiating whatever that outcome is. And I've seen different people take different tactics, whether it comes to immigration or economic issues or family issues. So I guess I would advise the young girls you're talking about is to really look at the variety of different paths you can take to tackle an issue. People, even as an elected official, we need to hear from individuals about decisions we're making and how it impacts individuals, not just lobbyists. One of my first surprises as a commissioner was how many lobbying groups and lobbying companies that came to me. But luckily, I'm pretty involved in Arizona. So as an issue comes before in a certain city, I'd reach out to the community and say to the Rotary or the Hispanic Chamber or whatever group it was, hey, we're coming to your city. We're making a decision. You need to weigh in. So I would advise these girls to find their network of support, wherever that may be, if it's not a traditional family, but a club or organization or nonprofit. And then two, think of the different pathways to achieve change, whether it's maybe picketing is the right thing to do. Maybe it's writing letters. Maybe it's writing an op-ed in the local media or doing media interviews. Maybe it's writing letters and volunteering and being in a leadership role in some organization that's trying to make that change, and taking a leadership role so you can really hold them accountable and create metrics around what you're trying to achieve. So there are many different paths. So that's kind of my, I guess, general advice I would give to young ladies today who want to make change.
Thank you so much for that, Commissioner. Because they need to hear from you because they're out here. They like, I don't know. No, no, there's someone that looks like you. There's someone that has the knowledge. And so let's talk about the average customer when dealing with you as the commissioner of Arizona. How do they reach you? Like, what is the issue that would bring a customer to you? Let's talk about that for the people
Yeah.
of Arizona.
So we do about 40 to 50 rate cases a year. We set the rates that you pay for utilities if you were in Arizona for our private investor owned companies like Arizona Public Service or Tucson Electric Power or Southwest Gas, so on. So, one of the things that folks can do is try to be very reachable. They can send emails through the website, azcc.gov. We get a number of people that will call or do outreach to the office. And I live in Tucson, but actually cover the whole state. So I'm in Phoenix quite often. So I visit organizations where I can speak directly to customers. The best way, though, I think, is usually to send an email and tell us your story. I will have people send me their utility bills or their particular issue, and then we'll tackle that and see what kind of help we can provide or assistance.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. And I know they want to know how to get in contact with you. And so, are you on any boards where you are mentoring women and girls wanting to get into the space, whether it's in the entrepreneur or the political space?
Yeah, not boards that specifically work with young girls that want to be, but I try to volunteer to speak at various organizations when they ask me to. The work I do is wonky. I think I used that word earlier, but I think it's important that people see someone like myself in this position, that they can also, reach to achieve a public official role at a commission. I've spoken at high school graduations and some tech school graduations and so on, and that's always a lot of fun. But I think it's important to be a role model for everybody throughout the community.
Thank you. So I just got the word. We're gonna answer some questions in the chat if that's okay with you,
No,
Commissioner.
certainly.
So let's see. So one question is from Miss Jamia King. She says, "What advice do you give to parents who have biracial children that are part of the Latinos community?" Okay, here it goes. But parents does not want to tell them. What should we do?
Huh, that's a tough question. So certainly the more we have a lot of biracial children. My own children are half Norwegian descent and half Latino. So it's what culture they're embracing and how they're engaged. I'm not sure I understand the question where it says, but parent does not know what to tell them. Maybe I think it's important that people learn about their
Right.
culture. So if that's the direction the question's going, there are different, depending where you live in the country, there are different cultural organizations you can participate in or celebrations, perhaps in your community or your state. I know my own children learned a bit about ballet folklorico and mariachi. We embrace the Latino foods and a lot of the cultures. But if you don't have that within your own family, I think finding nonprofit organizations that can help teach your children about the Latino culture would be a great thing to do.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks. So we have another question. Why do you think mentorship and support is so important for women as they move through their careers?
Yes, good question. I think you can learn from mentors and they can see perhaps with broader insight into whatever challenge you're facing because they might have experienced that same challenge. Um, I have always found mentors to be more naturally created mentoring relationships. I've not been in a formal mentoring relationship where you're assigned somebody. I have always found someone within the organizations I'm part of or on a board that I'm in who can relate to the issue I'm going through. And sometimes it's as simple as asking someone to go for a cup of coffee and sitting with you and just taking that time to understand what are the next steps for you. That's a mentoring relationship that can exist for years and years if it's the right, I think, chemistry or connection between the folks. So I think it is important. And a lot of women who might be a decade or two older, or even your same age, might have already experienced what you're going through and can help advise you, whether it's in career or in public office in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner. And so I think, okay, we did that one. All right, Commissioner. So what are you looking to do in the next phase of your leadership journey?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little earlier, I am running for reelection now to the Arizona Corporation Commission. So that's interesting. Last time I ran, I mentioned it was 2020. Well, we had a global pandemic at the time. So it was an interesting run for office in that there weren't a lot of physical events to go to. I did a lot of Zooms. And really, how do you reach all the voters of Arizona from your home computer, right? When it's a lot of those challenges. Um, so now I'm in a different
Yeah.
election cycle. There's a lot of political divisiveness occurring throughout our nation in Arizona. I am one particular party, but there are a lot of independents that have grown in our state, people who've left both parties, maybe being disenfranchised. And so, how do I reach independents? I mean, there's a lot in my mind now as I launch my reelection campaign to the Corporation Commission. I really enjoyed this role. So, that's my short term goal is to win reelection and to continue to serve another 4 years. Once 4 years pass, though, I'm termed out. In our state, the law is that you can be 2 terms as a commissioner. So then I will look to maybe some other statewide role or to launch a business or do something else. I'm not sure yet. I don't haven't planned that far out. Just focus short term on the reelection campaign and being able to continue to serve Arizonans.
Right. Arizona, stand up. Stand up.
Right.
Okay. So I think that's all the questions that we have. I do want to let the audience know who we are. WPLN is a 501c3 nonpartisan nonprofit organization working to educate, organize, and inspire center right women to seek public office at every level across the U.S. and be effective leaders. We do this through free online programming, in-person convening, and our state partner network. Our state partner network is our secret sauce, y'all. It is a nationwide network of independent, nonprofit organizations that are building the pipelines for women in their states and communities to seek public office. Since 2020, we have given over $500,000 in direct support to these organizations, as well as marketing, operations, and programming assistance. So, anyone listening now, you all could tap in on any of our social platforms, WPLN, see how you can assist, become a member, donate. And also for Miss Lea, do you want to give out your information, your socials, how people can connect with you during this election process if they want to, join on?
Yeah. No, I'd be happy to. And I want to thank WPLN also for the invitation and to ask me to speak during Hispanic Heritage Month. That was very special. To reach me officially, you can do so on a website at azcc.gov. That's our Corporation Commission website. Certainly, if you're an Arizona resident and need help with anything related to the private utilities I regulate, reach out at azcc.gov. My personal reelection information is voteforlea.com, voteforlea.com, and you can see my social media at that point and also learn more about me as a candidate. But I appreciate, Princess, all the questions and the time with you today. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, this has been amazing. You are my first commissioner, and
Oh,
I looked into the room. I'm like, what? Corporate commissioner? Oh wow! And she's elected. So I was so intrigued at the position. To when I'm coaching my women, I'm going to throw this job category out there to them now. Like, this is a real thing. They making money over here. So, and they need to hear from us. So I'm so happy to interview you today, get your name out there during your election season, during National Hispanic Heritage Month. Okay, let's put the national on there.
Sure.
And I wish you nothing but success and blessings, and hopefully a great run in 2024.
Great. Thank you, Princess. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.